People assume forgetting is sudden, that memory vanishes the way a light switches off. But forgetting doesn't work like that. It arrives quietly, politely. It removes pieces so small that no one notices, until there is nothing left. Noah was 36 years old when the first person forgot him. It happened on a Monday morning at work, during a meeting so ordinary it barely deserved attention. Noah sat at the long conference table with the rest of his department, listening as his manager reviewed deadlines that would be missed and projects that would be delayed. When it was Noah's turn to speak, he cleared his throat and offered a solution he had been working on for weeks. The manager frowned. "I'm sorry," she said, glancing down at her notes. "And you are—" The room went quiet. Noah smiled awkwardly and introduced himself, assuming it was a joke or a lapse in attention. People forgot names all the time. The manager laughed, embarrassed, and waved it off. "Of course, sorry, long morning." But something about the way she said it felt wrong. There was no recognition behind her eyes, no flicker of memory snapping back into place. By the end of the day, 2 coworkers avoided saying his name entirely. One asked him how long he had been with the company. Another thanked him for work he hadn't done. Noah told himself it was stress, burnout, people distracted by their own lives. That explanation was easier than the alternative. The narrator explains that denial isn't ignorance, it's protection. That night, Noah scrolled through his phone, grounding himself in proof. Messages, contacts, photos. His name still appeared everywhere it should. His social media accounts were intact. His reflection in the mirror looked the same. He existed. The next morning, the security guard at his office building stopped him. "Badge?" the guard asked. Noah held it up. The guard squinted. "This yours?" "Yes." The guard hesitated, then waved him through without another word. Noah felt something cold settle in his chest. There was one person who still remembered him. Forgetting spreads unevenly. It doesn't move in straight lines. It jumps, skips, chooses. By the end of the week, Noah noticed patterns. Newer coworkers forgot him first. Casual acquaintances next. People he spoke to daily still recognized him, but only vaguely, as if recalling a face seen once in passing. His neighbors stopped nodding hello. A barista who had known his order for years asked if he was new to the area. Worse than the forgetting was the absence of reaction. No one seemed disturbed by the gaps in their memory. No confusion, no concern. The world adjusted seamlessly around his absence. Then, the physical evidence began to change. Emails he remembered sending no longer existed. Shared documents no longer listed his name. A photo on his desk at work showed a group of people with an empty space where he had been standing. Noah stared at the photo for a long time, his breath shallow, his mind searching for explanations that no longer fit. He went home early that day. At his apartment, he opened old photo albums stored in a closet he hadn't touched in years. Family gatherings, holidays, birthdays. Page by page, he watched himself fade. His image blurred, his face softened, then vanished entirely. Only empty chairs remained. The narrator explains that terror doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers. Noah tried telling someone, anyone, but how do you explain that you are being forgotten without sounding insane? When he tried, people listened politely, nodded sympathetically, and never remembered the conversation. He realized then that memory was not just disappearing, it was erasing itself. There was one person who still remembered him. Her name was Elise. They had met years earlier, briefly dated, then drifted apart in the gentle way adults do when life pulls them in different directions. When Noah called her, she answered immediately. She said his name without hesitation. Hearing it nearly broke him. Elise noticed the changes before Noah explained them. She noticed how people looked past him, how waiters ignore him, how his reflection didn't always appear in mirrors at the right angle. She believed him. The narrator explains that belief is an act of love. As long as Elise remembered him, Noah felt anchored, grounded. He stayed close to her, afraid that distance might weaken whatever fragile thread remained. He avoided being alone. He avoided silence. But memory has momentum. Elise began forgetting small things first. Conversations they'd had hours earlier, details about his childhood, then his birthday. One night, she stared at him with panic in her eyes. I know you," she said. "I just can't remember from where." Noah understood then what was happening. Memory wasn't fading. It was ending. Noah prepared for the inevitable the way people prepare for death. Quietly, privately, without ceremony. He wrote letters no one would read, recorded messages no one would hear. He documented himself obsessively, hoping that evidence might preserve him. Nothing lasted. Words erased themselves, files corrupted, ink faded from paper within hours. Elise's memories deteriorated rapidly after that. Some mornings she didn't recognize him at all. Other days she did, briefly, painfully, like trying to hold water in her hands. On the final day, Elise sat across from him at a small cafe. She smiled politely. "Can I help you?" she asked. Noah stood. No one else looked up. As he walked outside, the city moved around him without resistance. People passed through him as if he were air. Doors no longer opened for him. Sounds grew distant. Noah realized he was no longer being forgotten. He was gone. There was one person who still remembered him. Noah had never truly existed the way people think existence works. He was a byproduct, a memory that lingered too long, a name that refused to fade when it was supposed to. And when the last person remembered him, there was nothing left to hold him in place. The narrator leaves the listener with the final thought. We fear death because we think it ends us. But forgetting erases the proof that we were ever here.